Are you ready to learn some really cool design tricks using Thrive Suite? Well, in this video, I will show you how to create the top section of the Business Made Simple homepage. As you can see, this is a really dynamic top section with a background video, with a transparent header overlay on top of it. And then we have these two buttons. One of them opens a video on click. And then we also have this cool 3-column layout overlay. Now, I will show you in this video how to do every single detail of this design. The Business Made Simple homepage is a homepage for an online training program and a coaching program. And let's have a look at the homepage to see what you will learn in this video. So first of all, we have this above the fold area, which is really nice with this transparent header and then the background video and this overlay, this 3-column overlay here. So I'll show you how to create that. And then we have this really interesting layout right here where you can click on the different categories and it changes here in this area, which I will also show you how to do. And then finally, there's this nice layout here with the image being full width. So the image like kind of coming out from the side. And that is also something that I will show you how to do. Now, we have a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. Now, before I get started, I want to make one thing very, very clear. I'm creating this homepage because it was requested in the Facebook group and because people want to learn how to do certain layouts. But I'm not suggesting that you copy other people's websites from scratch. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get started. So in our dashboard, let's create a new page, add new. I'll call this Business Made Easy. And let's launch Thrive Architect. When you have Theme Builder active, you will see that you have these different options on your page. If you're not using Thrive Theme Builder on your website, you're only using Thrive Architect, then you would see the normal page option and the pre-built landing page option. Now, what we want to do is make sure that we can start completely from scratch. So in this case, I will choose the completely blank page. If you're using only Thrive Architect, then you can go into our landing pages and then choose one of the blank landing pages to start from. So any of these sets will have a blank page and then you can use this one to start from. Now, please remember that if you start from a blank page in a landing page, then it will automatically take the typography, so the fonts and the colors from that landing page. And that is something that you might want to adjust. Now, in this case, like I said, I'll actually start from a completely blank page. All right, we really have a blank canvas to start from. One thing that you will see me do quite often is use the inspect tool in the browser. So the inspect tool is a really handy tool that you can use to discover things like colors or width or other things on a certain website. Now, if you're using the Chrome browser, the way to get it is just click right and then go to inspect. And then from here, you will see that this opens a whole bunch of gibberish. Don't be too worried about it. You can use the select elements icon here, and then you can select the different elements on the page, which will really allow you to get more details about the different page. Another tool that I use really often is the color dropper. So that's another one from Colorzilla. It's an add-on for Chrome. So you can search for it, Chrome add-on, and then Colorzilla. And this allows you to pick colors from a website. So if you really like a color and you want to know which one it is, then that's a very easy way to do so. All right, so looking over this hero area, I can see that there is a background color and then that on top of that, there's like this video. And because I can see that the background area doesn't go all the way around the video area, I know that I will need to use two different background sections. So let's go ahead and do that. So first of all, I'll add a background section. Click on here. And I'll set this to a minimum height of 600 pixels and add a background color. So like I said, we can go in and then use our color picker to see what the color here is. And then this gets copied. And then from here in our background style, I can now add a background color and then add this color in there. Once you know that you're going to use a color over and over again, you can also save it. So click on this plus button. That will save the color to either a global color, which means that once you change that color, it will change in every instance that you use that color, or you can save it as a favorite color, which then just allows to have it in here, and it makes it really, really easy to pick. Now, I already saved this color here, so I don't need to save it again. And just apply this color. Now for our video, because I can see here that this is a video with text on top of it, it indicates that I will need to use this video as a background image. So I want to use a background section, and I want to add the video as the background video on that section. So let's do that. Let's add the background section. Again, let's set our minimum height, and in this case, let's set this to 800. And in our background style, I can see that we have this toggle that says video background, and I will toggle this on and then select a source. Now, in this case, I found a video that is hosted on Vimeo. This is just a free Galaxy video that I can use. But of course, you would add your own video in there. I would not upload this video to your own website. I would always use a video hosting platform for this kind of videos. So in this case, Vimeo or YouTube, and then you can use it as a background video on your website. Now, in order to get this effect where we have the rounded corners and then like this overlap effect here, we want to select our background section with the video inside, go into our layout and positioning, and we're going to add a 30 pixel margin on both sides. And then in our borders and corners, we can select the top left corner and add something like 40 pixel, and the top right, and also add round corners there. So now, as you can see, our video doesn't go full width anymore, and we have these nice rounded corners. In order for this to overlap, we need to go back to our layout and positioning. And because we know that this layout is 600 pixels, we can add a negative 560 pixels to there, which then allows us to have a 40 pixel top margin. Now here, if you're wondering how much to actually put there, you can just play around with it and it will show you what happens. And so you can eyeball this if you don't know the exact pixels that you want to use. All right, so we already have our background that is overlapping with this section. And we can now start adding text on our video backgrounds. One thing that I will do for this landing page is go into our page settings. So click on the very first breadcrumb into pages and then go to typography. From here, I can edit the typography on this landing page. So this will allow me to set a certain font for the headings and the paragraphs, which then allows not to have to change that every time inline. Now, of course, if this page is part of your website, then automatically it will take the fonts of your theme. So usually that's what you want to do. But in this case, because we're designing this very specific landing page and it is independent from the rest of our theme on our website, we're gonna click on it and then go into all headings. So use the breadcrumbs here. And first of all, I'll pick a web safe font. And for the titles, I want a serif font, so I'm going to go with Times New Roman. And then for the paragraphs, I actually want a sans serif font, so we can just keep the Arial in here. Now, these are not the exact same fonts as on the Business Made Simple website because they are using paid fonts. So in this case, I'm just replacing them with similar fonts. All right, so we can see that on here, on this video, we have these text elements here, and then we have two buttons right there. So let's do that right now. Let's drag our first text element in here. And one thing that I'll do is on this background section, so let's select the background section, and immediately I know that every font that I will put on this background section, every text element will have to be white. So I'll go into typography and set this to white. You can use the slider here, or you can type FFF, which is the code for white, and apply. Now, rather than doing this on every text element separately, I did this on the background section because now it allows that each time I will drop a new text element in here, it will automatically be white. It will really save you a lot of time to use the outside-in principle. The outside-in principle says that you always want to apply your settings to the largest possible container. So in this case, knowing that all of the text in this background section has to be white, I'm applying this setting, the white text, to the container rather than to the individual elements. So let's add a heading 1 here. Now, just like we know that all the text has to be white on this background section, we also know that we want all the text to be center aligned. So in our background section, we can go into the alignment and then center align. And as you can see, both of these elements now became center aligned. One other thing that I will do on this background section is I will add an additional layer on top of this video section. Now, the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that my text is always readable. And the easiest way to do that is by adding a dark layer on top of the video. So let's go into our solid color. And then, as you can see, it's set to black. So the code for black is 0000. And then we can play with the opacity. So maybe set this slider to, let's say, 25. And as you can see, this gives like a darker overlay on top of our video, which will allow our white text to pop. And it's really important to make sure that the readability of this text is as good as possible. So that's why we want to add this secondary layer on top of the background. So let's apply. Now on this layout, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 different text elements, and then we have these 2 buttons. So on our version, we have 1, 2, let's add another text element in here. And I'll quickly copy paste the text. Now let's adjust the line height and the font size here. So in our main options in the line spacing, we can remove this line spacing. And this should be a paragraph and a little bit larger, and then I believe it's italic and not bold. And then we have our 2 buttons. So let's drag a button on this page. And now we'll use our inspect tool again to discover how this gradient is set up. So let's inspect. Select this button. And now here in the background, you can see that there is a linear gradient of 139 degrees and that we have 3 colors. So 3 different hex codes, one at 0%, one at 37%, and one at 100%. So we can copy these different colors. Go into our button settings in our background style. Instead of a solid color, let's have a gradient. And then here, this should be 139 degrees. And then click on the first color here, so add 0. This would be our first color. Then click inside this to make a new marker and drag this to 39, I believe. 37, and then we can copy this second color. So at 37%, we add this color, and then at the end, at 100%, let's click on this marker, and then it's this purple color. So now this is the exact same gradient as on the website, and just like with normal colors, you can save your gradients. So click on the save gradient and then add it to your favorites. Now we also want to make this button the rounded corners. So go into borders and corners and then set this to round. And the text on here, you can see that these are all capital letters. So we can go in and then in our typography, our text transformation, we can use this one to set it to all capital letters. And then it also seems to be bold. And then our letter spacing, it clearly has a bit more spacing in there. Now let's check to see if there is a hover effect that we need to apply to this button. So on the original website, let's close this, and then I don't really see a hover effect. So in our button right here, if you want to add a hover effect, we would go into state and then hover. But in this case, we don't need to do that. So let's go back to our normal state. Now that we are happy with this button and we know that we will use it several times on this page, we'll actually save this as a global style. So in your template button, you can click this save option here. And let's call this Business Made Simple and apply. Now, each time that we add a button on the page, rather than having to redesign this button, we can go into our templates here, and then in our saved styles, we can see that we have our saved style available. Now, let's add a second button on there. And this one is a ghost button. So I would go into my templates and then let's see if we have a round ghost button right here. Apply. And then the color of this button is white. So here you can see that this color was automatically linked to the theme color. If you want to make sure that you can just edit this without changing anything on the rest of your website, just click this unlink button and then you'll be able to add the color you want. So in our case, we just want to add white. Remember, you can use the slider or type FFF in there and then apply. Our typography settings, I don't want this to be bold, so let's not make the text bold. And then as you can see, we now have a hover effect on here, which we don't want. So we can go into our hover effect and then reset this style. So when you reset your hover style, it means that you're basically just not having a hover effect anymore and just keep it as your normal style. And now that we reset our button, we also want to delete the animation that was on there. So go into animations and actions and then remove this animation. So now nothing is happening anymore and we can go back to our normal state. Now from here, I feel like this border is a bit wide, so I'll select borders and corners and then make this 2 pixel. So that's more the look that I'm going for here. And we also have an icon in there. So in our options, let's add an icon and then we can click on this icon, change it. So this is a video or a play button. So maybe let's search for play. All right. And this is play trailer. It also has our transformation and it seems to be a bit smaller than the other one. Now we want to make sure that the video actually opens on click. So for that, let's go into our button and then into our animation and action. From here, let's delete the link that's on there and click on pop-ups. And then from here, again, you can select where you want the source of this video to be. So whether it's hosted on YouTube, on Vimeo, on Wistia, and then you can add the URL. All right. Now we need to get our buttons closer together. Select our button and then let's align this to the right. And this one, let's align this to the left. And in the columns, so let's select our columns. I want to add a little bit more gutter width. So this is the width in between the columns. So this allows us to push the buttons wider. Let's set this to 40. All right, let's have a look. Let's see in preview what this looks like. So right now we can see that our text is still pushed to the top of this video. So that's not exactly the effect that we want. We'll move that around. And in my opinion, the video is also a bit too big. So we'll make it a bit smaller. So let's go back to our editor. In our background section, we said 800 here, but I think 700 is probably better. In order to make it easy for this text to be in the center of the vertical space of this background section, we have an option that is called vertical positioning. So with the background section selected, you can add this vertical positioning to be in the center. Now, as you can see, this is grayed out at the moment. So when you hover over, you can see that this isn't working if the overflow is set to auto hidden or scroll. Now, the reason that this happens is because we added these rounded corners to our video. So what I'll do is I'll go into my layout and positioning settings, and just for a brief second, I'll put this to visible. So the overflow in the advanced settings, overflow visible. So now, as you can see, our borders are not hidden anymore, like they're not nicely rounded anymore, but it allows me to go into the main options and then use this vertical positioning. And then we can go back in our layout and positioning, and from here set this back to auto, which then allows to have our rounded corners again and to have our text nicely outlined in the center of this background section. Now, the next step to concentrate on is this top area here, where we have this kind of label-ish outline, and then we have a menu with a nice button right here. So let's create that one now. Go to our pages, and from here we can show the header. So click on the little eye and make the header visible. This will show the header that I have available on this website everywhere on the site. Now, because we are editing this specific landing page, I don't want to change this header everywhere on the website. So I want to make sure that I don't edit the header, because in that case, I would edit it everywhere on the website. I want to change this header. And I can go into create new header. And then from here, I can select something that is close to what I'm looking for. So in this case, kind of want just a logo and a menu. So let's see, here we have this logo menu option. And depending on the theme that you're running, you can have different options here, but you'll probably find something similar. And then let's choose this header and give it a name. Also business made simple header. And add it in here. Now, once this header breadcrumb is selected, now we can start editing this header. And first of all, let's create this label type layout, right? So for that, we're gonna add a content box underneath our logo. And let's make this a different background color. So in background style, let's add a color. And then our logo, let's drop it in here. Now for this logo, I actually want to use my white logo. So I have this available here. If you don't have this available on your website yet, you can add a new logo variation. So let's choose this one. And then in our layout and positioning, let's see, in our content box, we'll need to remove all the margins because we want this to like stick on the top of the screen. So let's put this to 0, and then in our column, let's see if we have anything there. No, in our columns also not. And then in our header, yes, here we have a padding, so we can delete that. So now this is like kind of locked on the top of our screen. And then we still need to add these rounded corners right there. So with our content box selected, let's go into our borders and corners. And then on our bottom corners, let's add left and right, these 20 pixels. All right, let's select our logo and then make sure that this is center aligned. And let's also add some margins underneath our logo, so that we can make this content box a bit bigger. So here you can play around with this and make it exactly the way you want it to. Now let's have a look. We have our menu, we have 3 menu items, and then we have like this menu item that looks like a button. And as we can see, they're all capital letters and they're also pretty spaced out. And we still have this little line that says powered by. So let's add these things right now. In the custom menu, let's select our menu item. And then from here, we can see there is a hover effect. So I'm going to set this to none. I don't want this hover effect anymore. And we can play around with the typography. So this, we'll want it to be white. I'll just wait a little bit, because if we make it white on white now, we're not going to see it anymore. But let's transform to make this capital, and then our letter spacing is definitely a bit more. And then this was like, yeah, this is bold. And so then if we go into our custom menu again, in our main options, you can see here you have menu items. And so from here we can type the different texts in there. So get the book, become a coach, log in and get access. So this would link to our book page, and then become a coach. So when you have the URL here, so you can either search for a page on your website, or you can type the URL. So let's say I know I have an about page, so I'm going to search for the about page here and then apply this. Now we don't need this sub menu, so I'm going to delete them. And then the next one is login. So we would link this to our login page, obviously. And then one thing that's really cool is we can actually make sure that the button login or the text login only shows when people are not logged in, right? Makes sense. So from here, instead of showing always, we'll show when logged out. So this allows for the text login to be hidden if somebody is already logged in. And now our last button here, so our last menu item, that says get access. So first of all, I'm going to make the font a little bit smaller, because I feel like this is a bit big. So let's put this like 13. And now we want to edit just this menu item, because we want to make it look like a button. For that, select the menu item and click on this lock icon. This will unlock it from the rest of the menu items, and now we can style it just by itself. So first, let's add a background style, a gradient, and then we can select our gradient that we already saved. And then in our borders and corners, let's make this round. And in our layout and positioning, let's add padding around this here. So all right, and then this typography should be white. So let's unlock this from the rest and put it to white. Okay, so now we have this nice menu with the button, and now we want to make sure that this overflows over this area here. So for that, let's select our header, and then in our header options, you want to choose over content. So if you're not seeing this, let's click on done. If you have your header selected but you're not seeing these options, it's because you're not in edit mode. So you want to make sure that you're in the edit header mode, and then you see the header options over the content. And now, as you can see, we need to make sure that this is visible again. So our menu items, our typography, let's also make this white. Let's save our work and see our preview. All right, so we're getting closer, but we can see that this is actually too wide. So we want to make sure that we restrict the width of the content in our header. So let's do that now. Let's click on our header. In the main options, you can see here that you can stretch the content to full width, which is what it's set to now, or you can actually set how width your content can be. And so that is what we want to do here. Let's reload our page. All right, so now this is much more what we're looking for, but we can see that this menu still has to be pushed a bit lower. So for that, let's go to our header and then select our edit header. In our columns, our vertical positioning, so we can choose this one to be on the bottom of our columns. And then we also still are missing the text elements underneath this one. So powered by Thrive Theme Builder, and change our font, color, make this a bit smaller, and remove the spacing. And then here we also have these 20 pixels, so let's set this to like maybe 5. No, actually, we can just remove this. Okay, so now we have our label that's like attached to the top of the page, and then we have our menu options, and here we have our get access. Now, as you can notice, because I'm logged in, we're not actually seeing the login text here, so anyone who's logged into the website would not see this anymore. Now, the next step on this landing page is the 3-column overlay. And for that, let's add a background section. Inside the background section, let's add a content box. And then the background color of this content box is white. And as you can see here, it has like slightly rounded corners, and then it also has a border. So for that, let's add a border in like a light gray, and let's add rounded corners everywhere. So with the middle selected, I can add like 10 pixels everywhere. And then from there, I want to add a 3-column layout. 3 columns, and then inside each of these columns I want a 2-column layout. So here we add 2 columns. Now, because as you can see here, we have like this icon and then we have text, so we can do that here. Let's add an icon. And then next to it, I'll add the text. And we can make sure with the column selected, if we go into our main options, to put our vertical positioning in the center. This will align both of our items here. And then with our text element selected, we can change the line spacing. So now this is nicely aligned. Now I will remove some of the paddings and margins. So I can click this log icon, and then when I add 0, it puts it everywhere on the paddings, and same with the margins. On the content box, let's also remove the padding, and then we still have some around this column here. So I'll keep the 10 pixels there because that's kind of looks like a good layout. And then what I can do is I can select these 2-column layouts. So with the text selected, I can see column and then columns. And then I can copy this and just drag it onto the next column. So this is really easy. Once you've done a layout, you don't have to do it again. You can just use the copy and drag into the next column. All right, now we want this to like overlap with our video, and for that we're simply gonna add a negative margin to this element. And now one thing that you'll notice is this content box is not as wide as we want it to be, and for that we can go into our background section and look in our main options and see how width our content is. So as you can see here, the width is from the landing page. So let's untick this box. Let's set this to the content covers the entire screen width. So now our content box will go until the edges, and let's add margins in our layout and positioning. So that we get the desired effect. In this video, I showed you how to do the above the fold section for the Business Made Simple homepage, but a lot of you requested to also show you how to do the interactive tabs element that is present on that page. And that is exactly what I will do in the next video. So if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, click subscribe, hit that bell, and then you will be notified when we publish this video.